Invincible! Let's do this! You ain't going nowhere!
Nope. I give it a 0. Not sexy. I'm not into it.
Please be aware.
Hey there, gamers! Today, we're playing Valkyria Chronicles 4, the 4th game in a series containing only 2 games because the other 2 were released on a platform
Nobody owed.
The game takes place during an alternate version of World War II, where a scarcity of the mineral ragnite, formerly known as weep oil, causes the Eastern Empire to declare war against its neighbors. We take control of an elite ranger squad in the army of the Atlantic Federation to the west, with the goal of protecting freedom and sending the Empire back where they came from. The squad is commanded by Claude Wallace, who is not Raz. Raz is invincible.
I'm invincible!
He's the single best thing to come out of Japan since Raz. And you do well to remember his name, because you're going to be hearing a lot from him.
I'm invincible, remember?
Raz, best friend and leader of Squad E, Claude Wallace, is the best commander in the Edinburgh army. He may not be much of an authority figure, but in the end he and his ingenious tactics always pull through.
Squad E, move out!
Then there's Deadeye Kai, our ace sniper and the only person who can tame Raz, the Invincible.
I'm invincible! That hurt, man!
Our so-called elite squad consists of a diverse cast of characters, such as an alcoholic, no punchline here, a spy and 2 guys who couldn't care less about her, a guy that refers to himself as Odin, yeah, he's a gamer, and Raz.
Oh, hell yeah!
Down, boy. Claude, have you not housebroken your squad?
Finally, there's Minerva, Claude's bitter rival and leader of Squad F. She's noble, stuck up, introduced tits first, and hates Claude and his take on leadership. Moving on to gameplay, Valkyria Chronicles 4 mixes turn-based with a real-time strategy in an interesting way. Combat starts on a mission screen where relevant info is relayed to you before you can position your squad. Once the battle commences, you have a set amount of command points at your disposal every round, which are mostly used for taking control over your units. When you take control of a unit, you can move them around until their movement bar depletes and perform one action. However, it's not quite as simple as running past everyone and shooting them in the back, as all enemies who can see you will passively fire at you. Additionally, shooting at frontline classes will trigger a counterattack should they survive.
England!
These mechanics make the game feel much more like a real battlefield, and they are massively important for your overall positioning, as well as breaking through the enemy defenses and setting up choke points. Once the mission's goal is completed and you are awarded the victory, you are given a rank which is solely based on the amount of turns it took you to beat the mission. We are always going for the best possible rank, which is A. Additionally, we make sure that everyone in the squad returns home in one piece, as any of my units reaching 0 HP results in an automatic restart. Units don't actually die by being downed, unless an enemy touches them, but any and all injuries are unacceptable under our command. A final rule is that because the battles in this game can be really long, I may save once per combat round, but no more to prevent save scumming. Finally, there's a bit more stuff you need to know about the combat system. There are 7 classes in the game, one of which we'll cover later. Scouts are meant for spotting enemies with their 270-degree vision and can run the furthest out of any class. Their rifles combine decent accuracy and range with serviceable damage. They are extremely useful, but not necessarily for charging into the enemy ranks. This is where troopers come in. They may lack the awareness of the scouts, but they move faster and are perfect for charging into wherever the bullets are flying from. Their weapons are extremely deadly at close range, which makes them the perfect infantry killer. Moving on to the more situational classes, Lancers are slow, heavily armored tank destroyers who couldn't care less about your
armor-piercing, fin-stabilized, discarding savage.
Under my command, there are also war criminals, the lot of them, because I dished out more headshots with their Lancers than with my snipers. Speaking of which, snipers are squishy, immobile backliners who excel at taking out key enemies at range, or not. Supports are worse scouts with stronger heals than the other classes, 3 grenades and the ability to repair tanks and barricades. If you clumsily set up your mortar on top of a live landmine, as you do, you might want to give them a call as well. Then there are tanks, in our case the Hafen, and Wait, do you hear that?
They are the elite,
Elite, born to compete.
These things are an absolute force, and the only thing that can stop them quickly is a well-placed shot into their exposed radiator. Lastly, as commander of Squad E, you can give out commands to your units which may be mildly useful, or turn them completely invincible. With all of that out of the way, I will now talk mostly about the game's story missions, because the optional missions aren't much of a challenge, but rest assured that I stuck to the rules here as well. This video will contain major spoilers for the story, so if you like what you see, you might want to check out this fantastic game for yourself first. Alright Raz, shall we?
Screw it! Not like we got a choice at this point. Let's go kick some ass!
In order to drive back the encroaching Empire, the Federation mounts a massive push for the Empire's capital, Schwarzgrad, which is basically Moscow, because that always worked out well. Our advance is halted by an enemy howitzer, which marks our first mission target. It's the first mission, so I breeze through the opening section, but then a heavily guarded bridge blocks my way. Out of nowhere, backup arrives with a fancy new weapon, the mortar. Mortars are broken.
Triple kill.
They can fire from behind cover, can fire at enemies without line of sight, deal huge damage, and their suppressive fire slows enemies down, trapping them in an inescapable loop of raining hellfire. All in all, they're extremely fun, as long as they're not used on you. I quickly secure the bridge and move on to sack the enemy howitzer. Afterwards, the grenadier turns out to be Riley Miller, a childhood friend of Raz, and the gang, who isn't too fond of seeing Claude again for reasons we'll get to later. For now, that's our first A. Our next mission is a reconnaissance mission where we have to uncover the positions of enemy tanks so that Riley can destroy them with artillery fire. So I casually stroll through the fog and make out which tanks are real and which are fake. Unfortunately, comms are jammed and we can't contact Riley. Claude, however, doesn't give up and transmits the information via the city's bell towers. With the tanks out of the way and another A rank in our hands, Riley now trusts Claude a little more because he didn't run away. In an interlude, we learn how Claude took over Squad E, and there's a guy named Kai present, but not the Kai we know. Well, he certainly doesn't look like an edgelord villain, does he? I wonder what became of him. Anyway, Raz isn't happy about the guy he bullied as a child being his new commander, so he refuses to follow orders in the first battle. Only when Claude begs him to assist his squad mates does he agree to work together and... Aww, look. We made Raz the Invincible blush! Back to the present, the Federation forces are getting closer and closer to the zekeval line, where the Empire is gathering all of its troops. But before we get there, since the battles in the next chapter are pretty boring, I want to show you probably the second funniest cutscene in the game. The funniest one comes later.
You think?
Well, they seem friendly enough. I mean, on the surface.
Wait, what?
They can stand there and talk, but there's still a gulf between them. Call it kind of a hunch.
Yeah? You think they're that complex? Guess it's just woman's intuition.
Except that I'm a man here. Don't forget it.
Like there's any chance of that. But seriously, no guy's got an ass this tight. Oh, come on! What the hell was that for?
I could ask the same of you.
Are you serious? It was just a friendly butt pat between dudes.
I think this tells you more about the main cast than I ever could, so back to the battles. First is some recon against enemies that aren't even looking at us, then we spot enemies moving to the zekeval line and Raz is like,
Alright, you imp bastards! Who wants to die?
so now we have to defeat all enemies chasing after us before we can retreat. The mortar comes in really handy here and soon Raz's little missteps lie dead in a ditch where we escape with 2 more A's. We learn that Riley's family was killed by the Empire for their research on weep oil, and Claude prevented her from jumping into the fire to save her family, which is why she was mad at him. And with that, it's finally time for the Battle of Zekeval. The Armored Personnel Carrier, or short APC, a very useful new vehicle which can carry members of our squad around quickly and safely, is added to our squad and both war parties prepare for the grand battle. On the other side of the wall, a mysterious man with a pimped up tank appears. His name is Colonel Klaus Waltz. He's a real ladies' man, a gentleman, you could say. But for now, let's not worry about him too much.
Now then, let's have a little fun!
The battle begins with a direct assault on the zekeval line. There are enemies, gun emplacements and pillboxes as far as the eye can see, and we have to get past all of them. I rush 2 units to the hill on my left and quickly take out all emplacements there. This allows me to push forward through the middle into the second half of the battlefield, which triggers the arrival of a new type of enemy tanks, assault tank.
Ricochet! Ricochet! That one bounced!
They really don't make life easy on me, but I narrowly survived their initial assault. In the following round, an allied tank squad arrives as backup, and a lancer in an elevated position behind the enemy destroys their formation. With the tanks neutralized, I take the enemy base camp and reap the rewards of a cool and commendable C.
Your own damn fault.
Yeah, thanks buddy. In my second attempt, I once again charge the hill on the left, clear it of all enemies, and then immediately push through the middle. Once the enemy tank platoon arrives, I hide Raz and a scout in a patch of grass in the middle of the battlefield. They are perfectly concealed here and the enemy tanks simply pass them by. Then, I use Kai to thin out the enemy's backline defenses so that I can rush for their base camp. There were some tactical hiccups here and there, but once everything works out, I put the INVINCIBLE in Raz the Invincible by ordering a defense boost on him and have him assault the enemy base camp. It's a good thing I brought that scout as a backup though, because Raz may or may not have stood within sniffing distance of his own grenade. The enemy base is ours in just half the amount of turns of the first attempt, but the Battle of Zekeval is far from over. We are now tasked with charging up a hill, but it's really nothing special as I coordinate my vehicles to drive around the outside ring, while my infantry clears out the elevated positions and provides support. The interesting part is that we may now use the direct command ability in leader units, who, for now, are simply our main characters. This allows them to command up to 2 other units to follow them around. This is extremely useful for getting immobile units around and getting units into position without wasting command points. Back to the mission, after sacking the hill, Raz runs off alone to kill himself some imps, and Kai goes after him to protect him. She gets wounded, so naturally we have to save her.
But nothing livens up a dull party like an attractive single who's ready to mingle.
Just at that moment, Klaus appears out of nowhere to make the operation even more stressful. We start out trapped between Klaus and his men and the enemies separating us from Raz and Kai. The beginning of the battle is pretty scuffed as the enemy gets to have the first turn and Klaus' tank passively fires during his action, resulting in 2 unavoidable unit losses. Abandoning these starting positions lets me survive the first turn without losses, and as soon as it's my turn I drive up the nearby ramp at the Hafen to get away from Klaus and blast away anything in my way. I do actually unlock anti-tank mortar grenades for this mission, whose suppressive fire immobilize tanks completely, but I end up not needing them at all because all the tanks get hung up on trying to hit one of my troopers behind an indestructible wall. This means that I can entirely focus on taking out enemy mortars up above before running and gunning my way through the trenches to get to Raz and Kai. Kai isn't severely wounded, and just as we prepare to move out a 4th time, news of the enemy's surrender shower us in ecstasy.
Yeah!
I think we've earned ourselves a little break, haven't we? We are permitted some time off in a nearby occupied Empire town, but things quickly turn ugly as Minerva's squad buys out all the bread and meat around.
Damn it! Give me back my meat!
The feud escalates and culminates in a mock battle between our 2 squads, and I'm sure the townspeople will love us shooting mortars and tank rounds all throughout town for some petty pride contest. Never mind. We get 2 camps and Minerva gets 3. I put most of the defensive units on the right to protect the camp, while I want to use my units on the left to attack. Wait, no, that's the wrong side. I put most of the defensive units on the left to protect the camp, while I want to use my units on the right to attack. I use command on Raz, and with 2 troopers and a scout I quickly take control of the relatively undefended first camp. Then, it's Minerva's turn. She's a very strong special unit, and this marks the first time that enemies can give out commands. Together with some infantry, Squad F's tank and a scout, which was preemptively placed in a tall building out of sight, they come down hard on my left camp. This comes back to bite them though, as all of my units survive and now their own camps are left undefended. Taking them is just a matter of picking off a few stragglers, and just like that, Squad E reigns supreme.
Oh yeah! It's bacon time!
As we celebrate our victory, snowflakes softly descend from the sky. I'm sure that won't be a problem. I want to be home by Christmas.
Hey there, kids! It's time for Lessons with Raz!
On today's episode,
Sexual harassment.
Check out the ass on that one. I'd swap her deck.
This doesn't feel too bad. Just say it, Raz. I know you're thinking it.
Oh, well, you,
What?
you have an incredible press.
Yeah. I mean, look. I apologize for grabbing your butt. It's just, you know how it is, girl. You see that masterpiece of an ass and you just gotta...
If that's your idea of an apology, then you really need some more practice. I'm gonna go for a dip. It's my first time at the beach. I may as well enjoy it.
Wait, Kai! Kai? Hey! Come on! Anyone? Get me out of the sand!
So, what did we learn today?
Yeah. Ask the cutie before I touch the booty.
That was Lessons with Raz!
See you next time!
We awake in the middle of the night to the chaos and carnage of an enemy counterattack, and with everyone running for their lives around them, Squad E stays behind to secure their retreat. The first objective is to just capture some enemy camps, so I speed through with the APC. Once both camps are occupied, Klaus appears once more with reinforcements in tow. I was expecting this, so I positioned 2 mortars in a safe position from where they can immobilize him as soon as he starts driving down that ramp. What I wasn't expecting was that he issues a unique order which allows his infantry to run through fire before creating a new path for himself and letting his tank, the Vulcan, erupt all over one of my troopers. Seems like our first real challenge is here. I play the initial part of the map again and position Raz in such a way that he can take care of infantry reinforcements. At first, I try buffing a Lancer with demolition boost and bursting down the Vulcan, but it's way too... tanky. Who'd have thought? Many deaths were had here, and every one was a reminder of how much better Klaus' bawdy jokes were than mine, as he kept repeating the same line you'll now have to suffer through with me as well.
Alright, soulmate, let's dance. I'll give it to you hot and heavy.
Thankfully, I finally remembered a simple truth. Mortars are OP. I safely position my mortar inside the cactus during the enemy turn and go on the offensive on the next one. The aiming is a bit tricky, but a mortar shot to the Vulcan's weak spot deals massive damage and trivializes the encounter. I sent 2 more members of the Empire Angling Club to sleep with the fishies and secured the retreat for the Federation forces with style. Or at least I would have if Klaus hadn't come for my honor with another perfect delivery.
I think it's time we head our separate ways, honey. Gentlemen's gotta know when to pull out.
Even with our valiant efforts, the Federation is still routed and Operation Northern Cross has failed disastrously. Winter came early this year and catches up with us as we retreat through the inhospitable mountains without winter gear. Little is felt of the recent victories in our cold, numb bones. It seems the only bit of warmth in this place comes from the brand new flamethrowers we just unlocked for our troopers, which are hot and deadly. Like your girlfriend after you've joked about her having taken on weight.
What?
Speaking of hot and deadly, Klaus is still hot and heavy on our tails, and soon we have to fight our way through the bitter cold and the Empire at the same time. The most interesting thing about this mission is how all units leave little trails in the snow in-game and on the map, which is a very cool detail. But other than that, even in the depth of winter, my elite squad is perfectly capable of coordinated push on 2 sides of a crevasse, while 1 brave trooper keeps the pursuers of our tail until we reach the end of the mountain pass. It's heavily guarded, but thankfully a conveniently placed weep oil container can be blown up to cause an avalanche. This would have been the mission had I not forgotten to evacuate the scout who caused the avalanche. So, after 50 minutes of doing everything over again, I trigger the avalanche a second time and cross the now undefended bridge for another A. Before we may leave the mountains and rendezvous at the beach with the others, we spot a massive Empire supply base. It supports the war efforts in the main character's homeland, so there's no way we could sneak past. The mission doesn't look too unusual at first, but once we move out, enemy trains appear on the 3 nearby railway tracks. They are indestructible and pack some massive firepower. The first and the last train can be rerouted using railway switches, which makes them give off this defeated little honk. But the second one constantly alternates between 2 positions. You have to move in sync with the train's movement because there's no way of getting past it once it locks down an area and asserts dominance. I take a few deaths here due to poor positioning, but apart from the trains, the map is relatively tame, so once I've got the rhythm down, Raz has already taken their base camp. A way switch that switches the way so that the twain can go another way on the way. We destroy the supply station and finally head for the sea. Spirits are high as everyone runs towards salvation from Winter's grasp, but elation soon turns to horror as hope is trumped by the dire reality of death. No one is left except for Minerva, but there's no time to mourn as Klaus pounces on us from behind like a wolf on a helpless fawn. None of us even try to put up a fight. This is where it ends.
Holy shit! Cannon fire! All tanks scatter!
Out of nowhere, 3 majestic dreadnoughts plow through the snow and the day is saved. While we embark, a little interlude tells us of how one day the real Kai deserted after participating in some secret mission and how his sister Lena took over his place. This chapter's mission is a stealth mission, so nothing to show here. Finally on board of one of the ships, the Centurion, we receive some much needed winter gear and Raz immediately picks a fight with our rescuers. Operation Cygnus, the Federation's final secret plan, lies in driving these ships straight into the Imperial capital across the frozen Crystal Sea and capturing it. With her squad wiped out, Minerva is added to Squad E and she provides big, massive, humongous tactical value to our squad as she is a scout and a leader, which means that she can use direct command to lead other units to wherever I desire with a scout class high movement. We also get to designate one member of our squad as a leader, which is of course going to be another scout for the same reasons. Somewhere along the way, we also unlocked grenade launchers for our scouts.
You stupid n***!
Our next mission is a little more than a playground to try all of this stuff out, but on our way back we are spotted by Imperial forces. To balance things out, moving forward, all enemies are elites, which means that they deal and take more damage and have a higher chance of dodging my attacks. At this point, standard enemy units become a real threat to my own units, so if you thought this was all a bit easy so far, well, the real challenge has only just begun. For the next mission, we first have to capture a camp behind us before driving all the way across the battlefield to an escape point with the Hafen. The initial camp is heavily defended, but nothing a mortar couldn't handle. The real trouble here comes from keeping the Hafen alive. Lancers, anti-tank guns, and pretty much everyone else on the map exclusively wants to see our tank destroyed at any cost. And if that wasn't enough, capturing the initial camp causes 2 mysterious, crossbow-wielding girls to join the fray, taking machine gun fire like a soft summer rain, dodging all direct attacks, and retaliating with deadly accuracy. For now, I only need to keep the Hafen in one big, smoking, dented piece and take out the enemies who could stop its advance. We make it out alright, but somehow I've got the feeling this isn't the last we've seen of these two. On the other side of the war, Klaus joins the special unit XO, led by the murderer of Riley's family, Lord Belgar, and including Kai, who now goes by the name of Versetti, the 2 girls we just encountered, Chiara and Nicola, and Chrymeria, a member of the legendary and powerful Valkyria, women with superhuman powers, especially in combination with weep oil. It isn't long until we encounter Klaus again on an open ice field after one of our sister ships has been sunk, but this time he behaves differently than before. He doesn't charge at us, but instead patiently patrols around the enemy base camp. After my first turn, he pulls a complete bullshit move on us, just like in our last battle, with an order that simply revives all units I've killed, which doesn't end well. Once I advance deep enough into the ice field, the real star of the show emerges, Chrymeria, the Winter Witch. Her powers are frightening, and she appears to be completely invincible. From my first playthrough years ago, I remembered this little crevasse on the top left, whose exit is blocked initially, but opens up while the Winter Witch wreaks havoc. The Witch as a unit is a super powerful mortar, but her passive fire cannot damage the Hafen, so I drive up to the enemy base camp like it's a Mac drive, and I'm here to deliver an order over...
cheeseburgers, 10 without onions, also 17 without pickles, 46 without both, 2 without cheese, 12 without ketchup, and the rest without all of that, none of that stuff, the rest without everything, and a Diet Coke.
Minerva rushes out of the crevasse, and under the cover of the very cliff the witch is standing on, she snaps the base camp right out from under their feet. The witch goes on an unrestrained rampage and pierces the Centurion with her destructive magic like a child pierces its sleep-deprived parents with a myriad of questions per day.
What if fish can actually understand us, but they can't hear us underwater? If windows are made from sand, why can't I see through the beach? What if we all just live in the dream of some guy called God? God. God. What if we all just live in a dream? God.
It's bacon time!
Mama, you're listening.
While Daddy tucks his little girl into bed, the Centurion sinks under the ice, leaving us stranded and without supplies in the frozen hellscape that is the Crystal Sea. You know what rhymes with Crystal Sea besides I once met a guy who was really angry after I tripped and drenched his shirt in my coffee, which is why he redecorated my face with his knee. That's right, it's downloadable content. Claude and Raz and the others are on sortie, so another squad member is tasked with feeding the squad's K9 unit. He forgets to do so and the dog runs off in search of food. A few members from Squad E chase after them, and they are all the units we have for the next missions, even if some of them are less than helpful. The enemy find our dog, and of course, it's no other unit than Klaus. Thankfully, he only joins the battle once you pass a certain point on the map, so you can take control of the map before spawning him in, and then just run away before he gets too close. Out of the frying pan and into the fire, on their way back, the unit runs into the Winter Witch of all people, and another fight for dear survival breaks out. Now it may have been because the Witch can be a really oppressive unit against poor positioning, or because I was a little tired of the game after playing for 5 hours straight on 4 consecutive days. But I broke one of the run's rules. I safe scummed. All I needed to do was to get 4 units into the safe area, so because I refused to deal with the Witch, I brute forced my way past the enemy defenses and reloaded over and over again until I finally made it. The game rewards me an A for this farce, but I'm just feeling shameful, like a dirty scumbag. I just hope Raz doesn't find out about this. Well, there's no helping it. Let's move.
You ain't going nowhere!
I'm joking, of course. Let's do this the right way. To unlock the chapter's final mission, we have to defeat one named enemy ace in each of the previous 2 missions. The first mission is the same as before, just with the enemy ace hidden in a random corner out of sight. Now, the second mission is a real treat, because they hit the guy all the way at the other end of a vast ice field. You have to carefully play around the Winter Witch here, as there is little shelter from our attacks around the map, and not everything that looks like shelter actually protects you. My plan is to occupy the enemy sheltered camp in the middle of the ice field as quickly as possible, and then continue on from there. I bring a scout into the Witch's field of view and force her to turn away from my target, so that my other units can make it there safely. While it does protect me from her attacks, a camp in the middle of an open ice field is far from safe, so in my next turn I quickly dispatch one trooper, take out the ace, and then push for the extraction zone with the 3 others. The devs apparently like doing a little trolling, because for the first and only time in the entire game, they bring out a lancer with a mortar lance right in front of the exit, whose throbbing lance explodes over half of my unit's private parts, by which I mean their guts on the floor. So, as deserved punishment for my safe scumming transgressions, I do it all over again, but more efficiently, and although his lance shall always stay erect, I made a certain someone go soft. With 4 units in a safe zone, I hope to have redeemed myself in your eyes with a safeless A. Raz, however, hasn't forgiven me yet, so the final battle is against him and the other leaders of Squad E. First, I have to cross a barricaded bridge, which I can clear out with a mortar easily before I take the first camp. Then comes Raz the Invincible, with a massive HP pool and the defenses of a trooper. There's no way I can take him on in a direct firefight, so I hope you've paid attention. What eternal truth can we always rely on when the going gets tough? That's right, mortars are OP. With Raz taken care of, Kai gets the same treatment and the second camp is mine. From here, I ignore the enemy's main force and take a detour to catch them from behind. At the same time, Minerva springs into action and beelines for my base camp in a desperate race against time. I order all units in a way to retreat and focus solely on getting to my goal first. The poorly defended enemy rear, however, can't slow me down, so soon my forces are assembled next to the enemy base camp. I hand out the equivalent of a kick to the balls to the Hafen and take the camp, scoring another A and completing the first noteworthy DLC. We've been through so much pain and suffering so far, so how about a nice and relaxing trip to the beach? Well, at least after we've chased away all of the Imperials around here. Now, I could tell you all about how you can beat the first mission in one turn, seeing as the enemy base camp is right in front of you, and you actually only have one turn for an A, and how there are 4 aces scattered around the map, which you have to defeat to unlock the next mission, which is why I beat the mission 3 times in a row in one turn. Or, being the man of the people I am, I could give you the real highlights of the mission.
It's perfect.
What a douchebag.
Any man wearing this deserves nothing but scorn.
Damn. Is it hot in here or is that just me? We're not quite free to enjoy the beautiful weather yet though, as more Imperials crash our party. Once again, I could tell you all about how getting to the base camp is easy, but there's another ace needed to progress the DLC, hidden in a faraway corner, with massive defenses around him, and the turn limit for an ace super tight, and how I had to send my units to eat machine gun rounds like they're extra crunchy cereals, or I show you the best cutscene in the game.
Minerva.
What's taking so...
Hey guys, yes! So huge!
Don't look at me!
I paid money for this. Anyway, back to being trapped in a frozen hellscape. Woo! The Centurion only pretended to sink to avoid further damage, but it's still beaten up, and the main engine, run by some super secret military technology, is offline, which means we're stuck in one giant, unheated metal coffin. Unfortunately, we haven't managed to shake off our pursuers, so soon enough, Kiara and Nicolau discover our whereabouts. They send in paratroopers as well as parabombs, which we have to snipe down from elevated positions to win the mission. Unsurprisingly, the 2 sadistic super soldiers are as dodgy as ever, and neither tank nor human can survive a good hit from them. Nevertheless, my main problem here aren't those 2. Instead, I struggle with defending my backline from charging troopers, even though I had brought 2 mortars for the express purpose of defending my base camp. A couple of tries and errors later, I decide to fight fire with fire and simply bring more troopers who can survive 1 or 2 enemies getting too close. Then, I advance with the Hafen to a point where Kiara and Nicolau cannot get behind the tank, and where I can lay down some additional suppressive fire. I use command on a scout and deliver a trooper and a sniper to the other side of the crevasse, position Kai on the nearest high ground for bomb duty, and have Raz sprint past everything into danger on a little side path. Once the enemy have finished their turn and everyone is still alive on my side, Raz can now come out and attack the 2 girls from behind, which they cannot dodge. Uh-oh. Oh, thank God, Raz, I love you. With those 2 gone, the rest of the mission is just a matter of getting my sniper on the faraway high ground and sniping down bombs and imps alike. Almost heaven! The backup engine comes alive, and as Riley and Claude are sharing a romantic moment, they notice a little girl on board. Who could that be? Well, that question has to wait for now, as we're closing in on a massive enemy sea fortress. Morale is low, and Claude tries to cheer everyone up to universal acclaim. We drop into the enemy fort from above via a balloon, and, to everyone's surprise, it actually works.
I think I broke my ass.
I take out the enemy artillery guns, and the only time this mission gets interesting is when the game spawns in the lightly armored cactus as my backup, in front of several enemy tanks. A quick fortify armor order defuses the situation, and just like that, the fortress has been overcome. As everyone celebrates the victory and Claude's bravery, Kai, who has been behaving oddly lately, runs off and Raz behind her. He demands to know what's up, and she admits to being an Imperial spy on behalf of her brother. Raz couldn't care less. After all, yeah, never mind that she continuously radioed your position to the enemy, and almost got you killed several times over, buddy. Oh, well, he actually doesn't mind. Anyway, enough soap opera, not that Raz looks like the kind of guy to use soap, and back to the mysterious girl. Her name is Angie, short for Angie. She suffers from memory loss, so we have a little party for her with a very awkward amount of clapping. Raz gifts Angie bacon from when it was
Bacon time!
but it's rotten. Aw, look how sad he is he messed that up. On the other side of the war, Chiara and Nicola have to undergo recalibration for their continued failures, while we make our way to an Imperial supply depot to stock up on food and other much needed things. Angie sneaks on land and meets Chrymeria, who makes her eyes glow red, which is always a good sign, while we infiltrate the supply base. And by infiltrate, I mean defense boost, scout rush until we arrive at the targeted warehouse. Kai meets up with her brother and tells him her days as a spy are over. Then, the others catch up, Forseti goes on an edgelord rant about a corrupted world, and we retreat to the ship where Raz, like a real man, stands up for his girlfriend and...
Everyone is okay with her being a spy? What is wrong with you?
At least Raz gets what he deserves.
Now that's a knockout.
And that's all, folks.
But I digress. Next, we have to help the local resistance free one of their leaders. I don't know how long this mission actually took, but it sure felt like it took more years of my life than at one time as a kid, when I tried standing on my sleeping father's belly, fell, smashed my head on the windowsill, and slid the rest of the way down along the wall. There's infantry around every corner, tanks in the houses, and gun emplacements on the roofs. All you really need to do is patiently clear out the enemy defenses before moving up. No rushing this time. And yet, call it impatience or call it impotence, but I just couldn't bring myself to take it slow. I simply didn't realize that there really is an A to be found in military-grade vibes.
Vibe check.
Other reasons for me having to restart also include there being an enemy hidden away in a side street who solely exists to screw you over if you've left no one to defend your base camp, and forgetting to capture an enemy camp I'm standing in and getting torched by reinforcements spawning on top of me. My whole experience with this mission can be perfectly summed up in a single clip. I finally make it to the barricade and go. Who's there? Hello? Who's there? It's... While we're out here fighting the good fight, Klaus confesses his love for the tortured Chrymeria, and the Winter Witch gives him the cold shoulder. We're soon going to see what will become of them, as our remaining sister ship, the Cavalier, is under attack, and we come to the rescue. First, we need to capture the 2 camps of the Imperial forces sieging the beached ship. They are blissfully unaware of our arrival, however, so all of their backs are turned on us. Taking the camps is almost a bit too easy. Who'd have thought they'd missed a giant juggernaut driving right at them through an icy desert? Well, they didn't. The Winter Witch and Klaus join in with a big backup force for a devastating pincer attack and annihilate the entire main cast. Yeah, back to the drawing board on this one. Now, what's the ancient mantra we recite in times of trouble? That's right, mortars are OP. I bring in 2 of them with anti-tank grenades, then drive up the left side of the map with the Hafen to tank the witch's attacks. I use Scout Command to rush my 2 mortars up the nearby ruins, and then take the 2 camps, making sure to evacuate the guy next to the witch. The real completion requirement for the mission is to destroy Klaus' tank, and my main force is now hovering directly above him, ready to strike. I don't quite have enough turns to destroy the Vulcan outright, so I'll have to endure 1 more enemy turn. The Vulcan can't go anywhere, but 2 enemy scouts are dispatched to give it to me hot and heavy in Klaus' name. In my second attempt, for the first and only time in my 40-hour playthrough, my mortar, no, let's say his name, Yasha, dodges their fire, thereby surviving until the next round, where it can send them, as well as their commander, straight to the hottest and heaviest places of them all.
With the ambush overcome?
With the ambush overcome, things don't calm down in the slightest. We found out that the 3 ships we ride on are powered by the interaction between Weep Oil and 3 Valkyrian girls, one of them being Angie. Valkyria can overcharge their bodies to cause a massive explosion, are we referring to from now on as the girly nuke. Our sister ship triggered their girly nuke as a last resort to avoid being captured, and in order to save us, Angie steps back into the previously dysfunctional main reactor to get us out of the blast zone. The real goal of this operation is not to capture the Imperial capital, but to drive inside of it and blow it sky high, Hiroshima style. As always, war is waged on the backs of children, or, in other words...
Holy shit! What the hell is this?
Everyone stares at the girly nuke's inhuman display of destruction. Some with grief in their hearts, others with a boner in their pants. But little time remains now. With our hand open for the Empire to see, they'll send everything they have to stop us. It's time for our final battle with our old rival, Klaus. We have crossed the point of no return so long ago. So let's hear it, Claude.
Closing in on the Imperial capital. Keep going, no matter what. Squad E, move out!
We start off pincered once again in the middle of an open ice field with the Winter Witch at the top and Klaus at the bottom. I fearlessly drive at the witch to divert her fire to my vehicles, and I'm starting to see why Klaus likes her so much. Then, I rush all of my infantry, including 2 anti-tank mortars, out of the open space and into the protected area on the right. From here, my goal is to take the high ground above Klaus and let the mortars do their thing. It almost works the first time around, but there's one more trooper blocking my path, while my own trooper is out of movement and has to stutter around until an enemy mortar blows up the cracked ice below him. With a bit better planning, I managed to take the trooper out the second time around no problem, and from there, I would just like to say, hot and heavy, Klaus, hot and heavy. Rest in peace. Primaria is still around, however, and seeing her lover boy blown up does pull on her heartstrings like a tornado pulls on a clothesline. There's no way around it anymore, we have to take her down. We start off at the very bottom with the Winter Witch now in the middle. The only way to get to her is to run around all the way to the top of the map, but the sites are well defended. Oh, and her wrath is not to be underestimated. I drive around the left with the Hafen to draw her attention away from my infantry push on the right. Soon, the entire outer ring is cleared of any enemy forces. Then I can shoot at her staff to stun her for 1 round, and from there, I just need to get 2 troopers close enough to hurt her. I unload on her body like, no, not saying that. I unload on her body like I'm about to ruin another one of Ash's attempts at becoming Pokemon champion. See? That's family friendly. Anyway, through the war, death, suffering, and the Winter Witch is about to trigger the most devastating girly nukes of them all. The womany nuke. As we run away, Klaus rises out of the ashes of his busted tank and with the power of love somehow manages to calm Primaria down. They may have lost the battle, but they sure have found each other. We, however, have already continued on our way to the capital. Schwarzgrad comes into sight, but Farsetti has one final trick up his sleeve. A giant electrified net. We're trapped, surrounded, and have been given 1 hour to surrender. The only plan we have to get out of this mess?
It's a suicide mission.
We would have to send in a small strike team to destroy the generator electrifying the net, and then leave them behind as we charge through before the backup generator goes online. There's only one man who could be tasked with the mission. Raz, the Invincible. There's little time for goodbyes, and soon Raz disappears into the snow. My main force clears the way for him and another brave hero, and soon enough, they arrive.
What the hell is that? Die, imp scum!
The insane son of a gun pulls through and foils Farsetti's plans with his unmatched bravery. There's no time to waste though, so in honor of his sacrifice, the Centurion forges on to end this war.
See ya, Lena. Claude. Riley. Live enough for me to hear me.
Hey! There he is! Over here!
Hey. You got a light?
It's time to end this war. We storm at Schwarzgrad, engine full speed ahead and cannons blasting. All we need to do now is secure the immediate vicinity and flee the area before the girly nuke goes off. The enemy forces are commanded by Kiara, who is as mentally stable as ever.
I'll kill you!
The enemy gets to have the first turn, so I run into a bit of trouble with how I want to position my units, but once that's done, I drive past Kiara with the Hafen to turn her away from my camp, and then take her out from behind, Raz style. The imps constantly call for backup and tank platoons, and Kiara will soon rejoin the fray, but I'm done playing games. And within 2 turns of burning everyone in my way to the ground, I have captured 4 out of 5 camps. The last one, however, is defended by Kiara, 2 tanks, and much more. I prepare to take it in my next round, but my relentless aggression seems to have gotten into the imps' heads. For 3 turns in a row, even though she's standing right next to my vulnerable units, Kiara refuses to attack from up close and misses from afar, while one of their lancers takes his frustrations of having been power-crapped by nerds in festival chairs out on his comrade. A joint effort from the Hafen and Minerva liberates the final camp, and just like that, the city's ours. Kiara is still alive and resisting, but she finally commits to solving a bombastic Sudoku instead. The entire battle was just a ruse, however, and Farsetti and Nicola have boarded the Centurion in the meantime. I take out Nicola Raz style as we scramble through air ducts and clouds of steam in the engine room to get to Angie before Farsetti can have his way with her. We confront him, and his sister, Lena, guns him down. With this part of the city now under our control, it's time to set off the girly nuke. But then...
The Empire has agreed to a ceasefire. All units in combat are to immediately disengage.
The war is over. But Claude is still wrestling with himself over whether he should pull the trigger. Thousands of lives lost. Villages, cities, countries ravaged for mere tactical gain. A whole continent thrown into chaos over imperialistic ambitions. And his best friend turned into a hero. And now that we have them, with their backs against the wall, we're supposed to let them off the hook unpunished?
End the war. Protect our home.
Raz is right. Genocide on innocent civilians won't bring children back their parents. The war is over. It's time to rejoice and celebrate all we have accomplished. Even bitter enemies regain their human form the moment that black and white are united by a peace that knows no color. And they're trying to steal our ship. Seems like there's one more bad guy to take care of. There's no time to waste. That crazy scientist must not get his hands on Angie. And so we set off, while Klaus gets the girlfriend treatment.
She's a real fine woman. Hey, easy. I was talking about her integrity, not her ass.
Belgar uses a huge submarine with tether guns to drag the Centurion away. In order to free our ship, we have to board the submarine and destroy these tethers. The submarine tries to hide underwater, but the Centurion's weight pulls it up every other turn. I make short work of the enemies out on the ice, and I'm so efficient that I'm actually well ahead of the first boarding opportunity. I do some damage, but not nearly enough, and then forget to evacuate my units before it submerges, leading to 2 drowned units. The second time around, I ignore anything past the initial part of the map and use the APC to set up my lancers for boarding. It's a majestic sight to behold against the radiant sun. I save the Centurion, a symbol for bravery and peace, before it can be dragged out of the sunlight into the depths of depravity. But it's not over yet. Belgar has manually triggered the girly nuke, and he has one final ace up his sleeve. A monster of a tank with more guns than I have units, and armor thicker than the average waifu. The Lophius has a devastating main cannon up front that can even erase entire camps and icebergs in one shot, as well as several smaller turrets all around its sides. And of course, every round it will submerge and reappear somewhere else on the battlefield. Our only chance to eliminate it is after resurfacing, as Arachnite generators have to air out, which we need to target. The game suggests something along the lines of building ladders on its sides with engineers and climbing the tank with lancers, but why do that when we have mortars? If you've thought you've seen it all, just look at my secret tactic I've kept for the very end. The Party APC. I modified it so it can carry 3 mortars and 1 engineer to supply them. It is simply the most dangerous sausage in the world. All other units secure the way for the Party APC. Reinforcements. The Party APC cannot be bested. It inspires all allies to give it their absolute best and never, ever back down an inch, even if it treads on them as their sovereign. Everyone hides away from danger. But the Party APC is the embodiment of danger, and it chases all pretenders to the ends of the earth. I think someone's afraid. The enemy can squirm and struggle all they want. They will never get the upper hand on the godfather of tactics itself. And thus, the party APC reigns supreme. We save Riley, who has entered the ship to stop the explosion, and Angie from the burning wreckage, and with that, it's over. The war, as well as the challenge run. I hope you enjoyed. Stay shark.
Glad things worked out.